In this video, we're going to talk about the IDs and the classes and how they work in Oxygen. Hi, my name is Stratos and I'm constantly producing video tutorials about WordPress. Please subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. Before we start talking about the classes and the IDs, I wanted to add something that I forgot in the previous video. So, we talked about the global styles and we saw a note that was inside the width and breakpoints that said that if you change something, you will have to regenerate the CSS cache. This doesn't only apply to the width. You may change something else like the color or the font or something different, and it may ask you to regenerate the cache. Now, how you can do that? Just go back to the WordPress website. Let's go to the admin, and I'm going to open that in a new tab. And once it's open, we will see that it has, let's go back first, okay, outside the page, and now I can see that it has two things that says that Oxygen global colors have changed. Please click here to regenerate the CSS cache, and Oxygen CSS breakpoints have changed. Please click to regenerate the cache CSS. Whatever you choose here doesn't matter. It will change. It will do the same thing. It will regenerate the CSS cache. You can do that also when you go into the Oxygen, into settings. Let's open that in a new tab as well. And then go into the CSS cache and click here regenerate. This is the same thing. Let's go here and click here, and it will go inside the settings that I just showed you, and as you can see it says all done. So it regenerates the cache. Now it took only 1 second because it regenerated the cache for the home page, but if you had a whole website here with a lot of pages and posts, it will take a little bit more time and it will regenerate that to every single page. Okay, enough with that. Let's go back and start talking about the classes and the IDs. For me, the classes is something that it's very powerful in Oxygen. And this is the main difference between this builder and all the other builders that are out there, except of course from Xeon Builder, which also has classes system. And once you start using, you will see how powerful they are. In Elementor, in Divi, in Breezy, and in Bricks, you will see that you have copy and paste style. But the copy and paste style means that you have to actually go into an element, right click, select copy, and then go to the element that you want for that to take the same style, and right click the element and select paste. If there is also a third element inside the page, you will have to right click again and select paste style. If you have other pages that you want also to do, you have to do it as well to the other pages. So you have to go one by one page and right click and select paste style. And this is something that it will take a long time for you to change the settings. And this is the power of the classes. And I know that Elementor and other builders have classes, but they don't have the classes to work together, and they don't work as well as the Oxygen builder. So let's add two buttons. We have here a button, and we're going to add a new button. And here, as you can see, we have two buttons. We want to change something inside here into the button, and this thing will change also here. As you can see, they don't have the same color because this has a global color here, and I'm going to delete that. And if I go here, I can see that I don't have anything for the hover, and here let's delete that also. Okay, so now we have both buttons to be the same. Now, if I go here that says ID and click here, it will say enter class name, and here I can put a class name. I will keep it simple for the time. I will just put button. It's not a good class name because you have to put something more in order to understand and remember what is what, but at this moment I'm just going to add the class button. I'm going to hit enter or click add class here, whatever suits you, and this class is now assigned to that button. Now if I go here and add the same class, so I'm going to enter the class name, I'm going to type button, and as you can see this is a suggested class, so I can select button. Both buttons have the same class assigned, so now I can go into one of those, it doesn't matter which one, and I can select the button color and I can go for something different. Whatever I change, you can see that it's done into the other as well. So I can put here a green color and it will go into both of those buttons. That's not a great color. Okay, so I can go into something like that. I can put a margin into the one of those and it will go into the next as well. So I can go into sizing and I can go into margin or padding. You will see it better in padding. So let's go for 20 padding and you will see that it went here. If I go to margin and put 20, it means that it will take 20 margin here and also it will take 20 margin here in the right of that one. So basically I can change whatever I want, and this change will take effect to every element that will have the same class. Of course, as you can see here, when I change something, it's changed immediately to this and it will change to every single page. Now, you don't have to do it, add all the elements and the classes that you want and then go and change anything. You can just style one of those, and then if you add another button here, and if I go and add a button, let's go for a button. As you can see, this button is right here because I clicked this one. And if I go now and select this button and go into the class and select here button, this will take all the settings from the class that says button. Okay, so the class works in the whole website. Whatever you choose to edit to style for the class, it will take effect everywhere. Now remember that the class means that you style the CSS, not the HTML. So what that does mean, if I go to the heading, if I duplicate the heading, let's go and duplicate that. So we have two headings here, and I'm going to click here into the heading. I'm going to click here and I'm going to put a class that is heading. Okay, add that class and go into here and put here heading. Okay, now I have both with the same class. So if I go here and change the text color, they will change into the color that I am going to put. Now, of course, you're not going to see any changings, and I'm going to tell you why in a minute. But if I change the tag that says here H1, this will change only to the selected one, because this is an HTML. It's not a CSS option. It's an HTML option. So I'm going to style it as H4 and it will not change to the other. It will just change into this one. So remember that all the changings will take effect into the CSS. If you change something into the heading into the word, it will not take effect into the other, of course. So if I change the content that says double click to edit the button, it will not change the content here because this is just the HTML text. So the next thing that you want to know is why it didn't change the settings in both here. They both have the same class. They both have exactly the same class, and it should change. The reason is because the ID overrides the class every time. So whenever you do a change inside a class and you don't see that change to take place, you immediately know that it's something inside the ID of the element that it overlaps it, and this it's taking place. So both of those have the same setting for the color in the ID because I duplicate that. So let's go and see what we're going to do. We're going to click into the class and I'm going to select the ID of that element. So as you can see, existing selectors, it says the ID and the heading. This is the ID, and the ID has a text color. If I go and remove that, it will immediately take the black. If I go back to the heading, I will see that the text that I have selected here is the black. If I go and change something else, you can see that it changes, and I'm going for a light green, and immediately it turned into a light green. Of course, this doesn't change because it also has the same style in the ID. So I have to go here, click it, click in the class, select the ID of the element, and delete the style here. Once I do that, you can see now that the color is the same for both of those, because again, they have the same class. So I'm going back to the class to style the class. So I'm going to select here and select the class. And now I can change the color of the class. If I go and select the font size and put here 20, you will see both of those have the same size. Not the same tag, because one of those is H1 and the other is H4, but they have the same font size. This is a CSS property. If I go to advanced and change something else, they will change in both of those because all of those are CSS properties. So I can go into the sizing and spacing and I can go for width of 100 pixels. Both of those will go into the same width. So whenever you add a class, it will go everywhere, but the ID overlaps the class in every element. That was something that first really confused me, and especially in the columns. Let's go and add the columns here, and I'm not going to clear the page at this moment, even if I probably should, but let's go and add some columns, sorry. So let's add inside the div, let's delete the div and add here some columns, and I'm going to select those 3 columns. So those columns have a width of 33. If I go and click this column, you will see that it says width 33%. So 33%, 33%, 33%, total of 100%. That's 100%. If I go and add a class here and add something like column, okay, I now have the column class inside this div, inside that column. I can do the same for that one. Let's put that also column, and let's go here and put that also column. Now I can go into the background color, select something, and as you can see, the red will go for all of those. If I go and select something different, like a border radius, like a margin between those, they will do it in every where I have set that class, but the width will not change. Let's go for the width and let's go for 20%. You will see nothing happens. Let's go for 50%. Nothing happens. Why? Because the ID of the column has a setting inside that says 33%. If you want to change that, you have to go into the column. You have to go and click here and select the ID of the column and then go here and delete that. Once you delete that, now the width that we have set in the class will override and takes place. And as you can see, it's 50%. So now the column is 50% of the whole content. So now I can go and put here 100%, and this means that this div will take place for 100%. As you can see, this doesn't change because the same applies in those 2 columns. They have the width of the ID. I have to go here, click that, click into the class, select the ID, and select here that says width and delete that. Now, as you can see, I have the second column also 100%. I can go now to the column and select something different, 50. This will go side by side. No, it will not, because I have a 33% here. But if I go for a 13%, not 133, 30, let's go for 13. Something like that, you can see that the width is now 13. This is not because it has the ID. Now, let's say that we want to delete everything from the ID. I can select here, click the column, and here I have 3 buttons. You can see the one is the copy, the other is the clear, and the third is the delete. Of course, you cannot delete the ID. You can just delete the columns, the classes from an element. You cannot delete the IDs because every element needs an ID. So I can go and select here the clear, and this means that all the style from that ID will be deleted. Now I have selected the second one. I need to select the first one and then go into this one and select clear. Once I hit that, it says, "Are you sure?" Yes. And now it takes the width of the class. These two, the IDs and the classes, are something new if you don't know CSS. If you do know how to write CSS and you know to write CSS, then you should know that every element needs an ID in order to style it different, and you can assign a class in order to style them globally. That's exactly the same that you are doing with Oxygen. And this is something that it's the main difference between the other builders. It may be a little bit confusing when you start using Oxygen, but once you start to understand what's the ID and what's the classes and the main two differences between those two, you will be fluent in that, and it will just be second nature to you, and you will do it without even thinking. Now, we also have the copy here, and this was something that we didn't have in early versions of Oxygen, and in many cases I started styling something and I forgot to give it a class, so I had to go delete everything from the ID and then arrange everything and restyle it in the class, and that was a hard work to do. So just think of an icon. Just think of something like a list that has an icon and then text next to that, and I had to style the icon, and then I had to delete everything from the ID and then style it again for the class in order to have it again. So these two buttons has made our lives easier. So we're going to add here a div. Do not think what's a div at this moment. We're going to do that in a later on video. That div, it's not a good place inside here. I'm going to put it here. Okay, I have a div here, and inside that div I have here an icon, and next to the icon I have a text. The text. Here's the text. Okay, now those two are something that I want to repeat those and have those as a list. Let's say 4 in the right and 4 in the left. So in order to do that, it's better to create one, give it a class, give the text a class, give the div a class, and then go and duplicate those as many times as you want in order to go and style those after that. And once you start using the classes, you will see that once you have made some changes, then you may find yourself in the position that your clients will ask, hey, I don't like the color of the button. I want to change the color of the button and I want to change it into that. So every button that will have that color will automatically change across the whole website. And this is the power of Oxygen. So let's see the buttons that we said before. We're going to click this icon, and I'm going to have the ID. Once you haven't selected anything, this means that the ID takes place, and we're going for a color of red. Okay, we're going for an icon size of 25, and then we're going to go for a solid. Okay, and let's go for a background of this one, which will be awful, but this is something that we have at this moment. And at that time, we remember that we're styling the ID, because you're going to do that at some point. No matter how good you are with Oxygen, you're going to style the ID at some point. It doesn't matter if you know it and you use it every day. So now I have to go and create a class, and this class will be icon, of course, because I have no imagination. I'm going to add the class, and now what I'm going to do is first I'm going to change the color, and this is the div, and sorry for that, as I've said, you're going to do mistakes. So I'm going here and I'm going to put here the icon class. Okay, so now that we have the icon class, I'm going to style it again. So what I want to do, I want to change that to solid again, and I'm going to change the background to a different color, this one. And as you can see, it doesn't change for the icon. It's changed for the div because I have the same class to the div. So let's go into the div and just delete the class. Okay, and now let's go back to the icon, and as you can see, it didn't change. If I go to the icon font size, icon size, and go for 50 or something, nothing is changing because the style, the ID overrides the class. What I want to do now is go into the icon, select the class, and now I'm going to select here this one, which is the copy. I'm going to copy the class, and then I'm going to select the class that I want to paste the styles. As you can see, it says copy styles here. So I'm going to click that, and this class will take all the settings from the ID and will put them into the class. So as you can see, I have now the red color and the global color. Now, if I try to change, I again cannot change because the ID hasn't changed. It has the color of the red here. So if I try to change something, as you can see, I cannot. It has the settings in the ID. I have to go and clear them. So let's go into here, click here, and into the ID I have to go and click the erase, delete all styles from this selector. Click here, click OK, And now I can go and play with the settings of the class and they will take effect. As you can see here, everything is changing. So this is the class and the ID. If you want, see the video 2 or 3 times in order to get used to the differences, in order to get used to how you use the classes and the IDs. This is something that you must master, or you have to get used to in order to work with Oxygen and to get better at it. Of course, in the videos that are going to follow, we're going to use the classes and the IDs to style some elements. You're going to see the differences, but you have to know what are the basic differences, what are the purpose of everything. And you will see that we can add as many classes as we want here. You don't have to have one class for every element. You can have 5 or 10 classes for every element. Of course, those classes will not do the same thing. You don't want classes, 2 classes for the color, but you may need classes for the margin, for the padding, for some motion or any other thing that you want to add. And we're going to see later on how to do those things. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye.